You've just accessed Hardware is Forever, your source for the expert insights, ideas, and innovations you need to do more in the electronics manufacturing industry. From optimization to operations, join us as we put the pieces together for a better approach to manufacturing. Let's go.
This is Hardware is Forever. I'm Chris Bentliff. Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech. And Jay, I love that we have this platform where we get your undivided attention to explore these interesting ideas and learn from you and collaborate in this sort of process. And we've been talking about HMLV for a long time. And automation is almost for me synonymous with. Do you agree? How much of HMLV can be done without automation anymore? And I guess what's the approach? What's the general sort of sensibility that you have where automation is concerned in context of HMLV?
Yeah, I think automation is a unique thing because we've seen it in high volume environments where we try to automate too much, it doesn't work. And I think this is a big thing that Elon Musk even said. He wanted to automate so much, and he designed it for automation, but it just didn't work. And then at the end of the day, he had to bring people in to do some manual tasks to make sure that the line keeps running. So, people in high volume scenarios and low volume scenarios see it. And I think there's a different level of automation for everything. In some high volume scenarios, you can throw money at the problem, get generic and specific machines to do specific things to automate it, or specific software to do specific things to automate it, because you have the resources, and the ROI to invest in that definitely pays off. When you're in a high mix, low volume environment, of course you don't have those type of resources, or you don't even have those type of, there's financial resources or technical resources. You don't have those things. So then you have to kind of take a different way and take a step back, where you have to accept the fact that there is going to be manual work. But the question is, how can we make the manual work easier? And there's a lot of scenarios where it works, it doesn't work. For example, is jigs and fixturing. If you have and equipment, for, let's say, through-hole soldering, in an environment where it's a high volume environment, you can get jigs, fixtures, selective solders, wave solder machines to kind of do it. But when it's a low volume environment, you're going to build 200 every year. Does it make sense to go down that route? Maybe not. Maybe you just make the call to hand solder it. You can do that, but then also you can create selective solders that have generic tooling and build it. Or you can create fixtures that are not machined, but just made out of stuff off the shelf that just save you enough time and add that much value that you don't have to go through a complicated CADing process, an iterative process to make sure the tooling works. You just kind of one and done. And all you need to do is build it once, you use it, and you throw it away. So you have to have really a different approach to it. And some companies love the fact that they can use 3D printing now to create this fixtures and jigs, because the cost and the iteration is so much cheaper to do it. It makes sense to do it now for lower volume jobs. But it's not always the case that you can automate it. So we need to be generically optimized and generically automated. So we have our machines that have low tooling, low programming or setup costs and resources that are required, and then can also help us automate the processes. And one of the biggest things, and I think the breakthroughs in the last few years, is inspection. Inspection was the holy grail before. You couldn't automate inspection. Now with vision systems and machine learning, we're able to implement that and automate that. And that's making a huge, huge difference on our yield and our ability to service the customer.
It's almost real time. You don't have that, what we've discussed, downtime of figuring it all out. It feels like with a lot of automation and a lot of AI stuff, the skill set of knowing what to look for is becoming more and more valuable than the old adage, knowing which nail to hit rather than being a person who can hit nails, because the machines can do that. Do you agree? When we get into what do we automate and what do we don't, the person, the thing, the entity that we don't automate has to have situational awareness to understand what to do with this information and how to move forward with it. Yes?
Yeah. I think, probably all of the above. Each scenario is going to be different in a low, high mix, low volume type of environment. So like we need to know we need people to be trained enough to know when it makes sense to create fixturing and when it doesn't make sense to create fixturing. And then we also need a process engineering team and operational excellence team that can go outside in the shop and see where people are struggling, and see where there's wasted motion or wasted waiting or wasted resources, and then quickly spin a solution that can be implemented immediately to help, the operators work.
And you mentioned with the automation, like we try to automate everything and then we realize we can't. I don't know. Are there symptoms or signals that you see or that are sort of best practices around this is a thing that even if it takes you a moment more, even if it doesn't scale, it just makes more sense for it not to be automated? Is there something I can look for that sort of is the signal to me on that?
If I say, yes, there's a way, then I'm closing all potential opportunities the universe may have for me to say, we can automate it. But if I say yes, then I don't know how to answer that either. I think it's a case, you got to keep an open mind. I think you have to default that there is a way to automate it and there's a way to create a fixture for it by default, and then work backwards and say, actually, this doesn't make sense. It's just faster if I do it like this. We had a scenario where we were doing selective solder on on boards, but the boards were laid out in as such that we ended up touching everything up anyways. So it's just like, why are we selective soldering? This just doesn't make sense. So let's just cut out selective solder and just do it by hand. So we attempted it. It didn't work. We pulled back and now we do it by hand. And then, from there, we've also implemented different ways to automate that, or even do pin through paste. So we're doing it in the SMT process rather than the through hole process. So we're soldering through hole components through our reflow oven. So there are scenarios like that where you can't say no. You just got to keep your eyes open. Say maybe right now is not the right time, or you just have to keep on looking for ways to do it and keep on asking and let the universe just, when you're ready, give you the answer so you can run with it. So I wouldn't say that there is not, I wouldn't want to prescribe to say that you can't assume that something cannot be automated. We just got to figure out when it does make sense to do that.
And it can be one of those, back to the analogy, if I have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Like you can get into a space where let's automate everything. And then it is the mistakes or the accidents or the inefficiencies that pull you back to realize. And I guess there's one or two approaches. Let's do everything and then let the situation inform us to what we can't, or let's go in more precisely and automate just these things and see how it goes, and then build on that. Do you have a preference? Do you have a way that you approach it?
I think it's always the 80-20 rule. You want to focus on that 20% that's going to give you the 80% impact first. So if you have that approach, where is my biggest time or waste? You focus on that, and then you just got to go cyclical until you can get as much as you can out of it.
Which is a good place to start. I think a lot of this, and we've done that in episodes past where we're talking about like where to get started, but some good insight, right, is just what's the thing that is bugging you the most? Where do you keep stubbing your toe the most? Start there and let it inform the rest of your process.
Correct.
When you look back 5 years, what is different tangibly? Like, what do you say, like this amount of time or whatever, these amount of resources, or we can serve this many customers, that automation has changed from what you're doing now? That's on the spot, but what is that dynamic for you? I
think a lot of new manufacturing technologies have been implemented. It starts at a chemical level. It starts at up to an AI level. So I think a lot of the equipment that we have is being augmented by AI, and a lot of the chemicals that we have been using have become significantly better and more manageable. So we're leading. It leads us to cut down processes to manage a lot of different things that gets us to a higher yield. And because AI is being introduced to almost every process now, it's automating a lot of that manual work that we used to have to do. So we're able to launch products with more confidence to ensure that we're going to get higher yields at the end, because we're focusing on problems rather than solving problems rather than focusing on managing processes.
How tricky does it become, the investment in the technology? An analogy is, I buy the biggest, coolest hot rod computer today, and in 5 years it's a relic. Like, you can really invest in a lot of tools and technology that is the thing today. That's not easy to just, for an organization to just be updating every year or whatever. I don't know. How do you manage that? How do you manage this is what we're going to have until something breaks or something better comes along, and not lose your mind with all of the shiny things that can be happening all the time?
I mean, I think business changes all the time. Before, everybody needed a desk, and everybody needed a phone at their desk, and everybody, needed a file cabinet. And now everybody needs a laptop, a second or third monitor, a webcam, headphones. Now, whenever this happens, we always swap the old with the new. But if the game changes and you need to upgrade, then you need to upgrade, and that's just the cost of doing business. And hopefully the upgrades are such that it brings your overall. It creates more capability, reduces waste, so the cost is not. It's a neutral driver in your entire costing structure to the customer.
Is this how often in your colleagues and peers, and when you're at your organizational events and things like that, how top of mind is this for everybody in the industry trying to improve this or perfect this?
I think everybody has the same pain points, and everybody solves it in the best way possible with the information that they have. So I think your intelligence in the sense of what do you know is out in the market is going to be that much more important. So talking to like-minded individuals, people who are in the same industry as you, dealing with the same problems with you, and then brainstorming with solutions really makes a big difference.
Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech. Fascinating stuff. Thanks, Jay. I'm curious about a couple other things that we'll get into in our next few episodes. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers and followers. Consider becoming one today wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Hardware is Forever is designed, tested, engineered, and built by the manufacturing experts at Amtech. Learn more and let us help you envision your next project with a free Design for Manufacturing assessment at buildamtech.com/DFM.